What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I'm with my good friend Ajay Sharma.
Hello, hello.
Very experienced land investor partner here at Learn Land. And today we're gonna sit down and talk about somewhere between 5 to 10 to 50 different topics on land investing.
No, that's bad. It is not very direct.
So today I have a very fun video for you. Every week inside of our company, we have social media Sundays. It's where we send out a prompt and we say, hey, give us some ideas for social media, questions, topics. So today we're gonna sit down and we're gonna answer as many of them as we can. So stay tuned, grab some popcorn and enjoy.
Cut scene, we've got popcorn in hand. Clint, you've done this 1,000 times, no pun intended. You've literally flipped over 1,000 deals, but you told me you still struggle with imposter syndrome, right? So let's break that down. Should all land investors be feeling that? How normal is that? What have you worked through as you've kind of figured that out throughout your career?
I have found most people feel like an imposter if you're doing anything. I have a friend who just spent 5 days with Richard Branson on Necker Island. And the man also says he feels like an imposter and like he has no idea what he's doing in a ton of his different ventures. Wow. If you don't know who Richard Branson is, look him up. Very successful investor, entrepreneur. So I think the punchline is everybody always feels that way. And I've been doing this for 7 years and I've not, like anytime I've tried to grow or do something different, I've never felt like I have any clue what I'm doing. In fact, half the time I feel like I shouldn't even be where I am. Like we shouldn't be in the studio, we shouldn't be filming content. Why aren't we just making cold calls, you know? But yeah, man, when you put yourself in a situation where you're unfamiliar, new territory, new waters, you're not supposed to feel like you know how to do it, right? A baby doesn't know how to swim until it takes a bunch of lessons and you throw it in the freaking water. Is that a thing? Do people throw babies in the water?
I hope not.
No, they do. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. Take a baby and they'll toss it in the water and they'll let it turn itself over and figure out how to float. It teaches them how, anyway, all that aside, you can look up some funny YouTube videos. They literally just take babies and chunk them in the water. And I guess if they start drowning, they'll pick them up. But most babies will turn themselves over and they will float, right? I don't know exactly how that parallels to this, but I do know that baby didn't know how to swim the first time, right? And so anytime I've tried to grow my business, tried to go to a different level, I always feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And so I think it's something you come to embrace.
Got it, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a really good point that you brought up that it resurfaces as you go through new stages of growth, right? I think a lot of people, especially when they're in their 20s and 30s, are thinking through or just diving into a new venture, it's like a one-time thing, right? Like you face imposter syndrome and then you're good. You've battled it, you've overcome it, you won. The fact of the matter is every single time you either change something up in your business, make more money than you had the year before, it resurfaces. And again, to your point, it is a sign of growth. Like, I think Layla Ormozy says it best, where if you're not facing imposter syndrome fairly often, you're not growing, and you probably need to be, right?
I don't know who wrote this one in, but I'm gonna read it off. That might have been me. Found my best team members by hiring twice. Is that me? Okay, what did I mean? No, really, I think I know what I mean, is that the first time you hire anybody, you likely don't really understand the right way to hire. And like what I mean by that is, when I first started my land business, I just wanted anybody who would help me do anything. Like that was such a blessing. Anytime somebody would help me put a mailer together, answer calls, follow up on leads, paperwork, whatever it is, you're just starting out, it's like, wow, God, somebody decided to help me. I'm not like a complete loser. But as you grow your business and you decide to go to the next level, or you want to make more money or more impact, whatever you're trying to do more deals, you generally need a new quality or you need to level up. And so one thing I've found is that it often gets misconstrued that you need to level up, but it's really your entire organization needs to level up.
Right.
And so I've found that a lot of the people I've hired kind of set in, or they were of a certain level of talent. When it came time to level up, either weren't able to be consistent enough to do the things it takes to go to the next level, or they simply just weren't going to be a culture fit with the new level of responsibilities and expectations.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by hire twice is most of the time I've had to fire the first person in the seat because I learned what I liked about them, but I also learned what I really didn't. So by doing that, you know, you can create a better job description. You have an idea of your non-negotiables, which I think a lot of people, you don't have a list of non-negotiables when you first start. It's, again, anybody who will help you. But as you start growing, you find that list.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a lesson that you're touching on here when it comes to hiring, that as you're growing your land business, or any business for that matter, you want to onboard people that have a growth mindset in the early stage. I would say a majority of people do not have a growth mindset, fortunately, and because of that are probably not a good fit for the company. So like, you can get ahead of it by screening for it, at least to some extent.
And people also sometimes think they have a growth mindset, but they don't have a growth mindset. Let's also get that one out there.
Yeah.
Like, people who think of characteristics, traits, like consistently let you down, but have an excuse, or things aren't done correctly, or have a common issue or question that they run into all the time and they haven't solved themselves. It's like, for me, I tell people these days, like where I am now, which may be a couple levels above a newer or a mid-tier investor, is like, whenever I spend time with the wrong person, I lose money, right? Because it's not just the amount of time we spent there, but it's the amount of time we have to unwind the problems, the new person, rehire and retrain. So I have a very, very short tolerance for somebody who doesn't get it, right? Somebody who doesn't understand and have a demonstrated track record of what we need done.
Right.
And so if you, on my team, again, that's why I think we wrote, what did we write?
Hire twice.
Yeah, I've learned about hiring twice. Twice is generous. It's really been like 3 or 4 times. Really, really nailed positions in my business. That's rarely ever been the first time.
It's really good. Something I do when I'm hiring is communicate to all my employees that there's a 90-day performance review. Usually 90 days is enough of in a way that you get a feel for how these folks perform. And there's 2 sides to it. If they know it's coming, right? Maybe they're gonna have their A game on, but over a 90-day period, you're probably gonna slip up 1 or 2 times, and you get to see how did they manage that slip up, right? Did they own it and come to me and communicate and say, I just made a mistake here. How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Or did they blame, I'm busy and my uncle's cousin's brother's fault because they did something that was completely out of my control, And so you learn a lot about the person's character, and you learn a lot about how they handle stress, how they handle mistakes. And then in that 90-day check-in, you can be like, hey man, I'm pointing to these 3 things that you did, and unfortunately you're just not a good culture fit here. Now on the flip side of that, you can reward good behavior. I know I did that with my acquisitions manager, where I said, hey Veronica, you've done a great job. We're gonna give you a raise, And so we did that, and she has been super motivated and encouraged ever since, and it's been really good for us.
I don't know why this comes to mind, but new favorite interview question, I ask it in any interview that I'm sitting on. What would you do to go above and beyond in this position? It's gonna very quickly let you know, have they even thought about that leading into the interview? What would make me, I wanna hear from a candidate question to me, what would make me the best fit for this position, right? I want somebody to be thinking about, how can I go above and beyond to make sure I'm the best candidate for that position, or get out of the way if I'm not. I like to ask that question now. Hey, you got an idea of the role now, right? We've gone over that. What are a couple things you think you could do in this role to go above and beyond for the business? If they're completely, and varying levels of how to interpret interviews.
Give us some of the best and worst answers you've ever gotten.
well, it's pretty synonymous. You're gonna almost find somebody who doesn't respond or who doesn't think that way, have a, oh man, really good question. I haven't thought about that type deal, right? And I'm like, it's okay, but I'm also like, it's probably not a good. For example, if I'm hiring, let's say, an executive assistant, okay? It's not rocket science. An executive assistant is it's a position, a role, a discipline that's been around for a long time. So a good executive assistant, somebody who's got demonstrated experience, if I say, hey, how could you go above and beyond in this role, or how have you gone above and beyond in this role in the past? Or any good, they've probably got some examples of, my boss was traveling, they didn't even know that they left their passport, and so I mailed it to her, or drove to the airport, or my boss always has a super busy schedule, so I make sure that all of their thank you cards are signed and sent, or whatever, right? You could say anything. Just give me an idea that you're thinking about the outcomes of the role and the position, and how you could be the absolute best at it.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I think I might have come up with it. Somebody else could have. Definitely didn't hear it from anyone, but that's just I'm sitting and I'm thinking about all the people who haven't worked out in our companies. And I'm like, okay, well, what was the main thing they all lacked? It's kind of that growth mindset, but it's above and beyond, right? And if I want to rant on this for just one more second, because I can rant on people all day, attention to detail is, like, in my opinion, especially in a real estate business, really in any position though, I think is the one of the most important things. If there are consistently overlooked details in contracts, if somebody's sending you data sets that aren't completely, let's just call it refined for this video, go on and on and on, what pops into your mind that some of your employees do over and over, that shows me a lack of attention to detail, and it shows me that you don't truly care about the outcome of the job. So for me, it's not only a non-negotiable these days. When I see it on a repetitive basis in our business, it's like an automatic DQ, you're out, right? And I can just tell you, as you grow and you start making more money and growing your business, you just don't have time for the bullshit. Every minute or hour you spend that's wasted is time that you could have been growing the business.
Right.
So, I don't know, a couple of my pet peeves and things I look for, I want to see growth mindset, I want to see attention to detail, and I want somebody to be able to say, yes, I've done this before, and I can do it for you. Versus, oh, yeah, I was a realtor, but I totally understand land. As well, you probably don't, right? If I sat here and really grilled you on questions, you probably wouldn't be able to answer.
Right.
And so those are a couple of things that I like to see.
Yeah, so that being said, you just pointed out a really good one of people being willing to admit their shortcomings. And I think that, again, goes hand in hand with the whole growth mindset, right? If I had somebody that showed up and they were like, I'm the guy, I know everything, I'd be like, you know nothing.
Yeah.
Goodbye,
Yeah.
you know? Versus somebody being like, I know enough to get rolling, and ideally you give me the time and resources to be really, really good for you, right? And I'm like, okay, cool, let's do this thing, right? And I'm ready to fire off. That being said, man, I know another question I get asked all the time with investors in the hiring vein is, who do I hire first, Clint? I've been doing this by myself, you know, I'm bridging out of solopreneurship finally. Do I bring somebody in for operations, or do I bring somebody in for production? What would you say to that?
It's super clear in my opinion, and this is kind of the hard part. I've never known how to articulate this, so we'll see how it comes out on this try. There's a select group of entrepreneurs, it's probably like that 10 or 20% aren't salespeople. Just call it what it is, right? That is, in my opinion, the most challenging position to grow a business from, because the person, regardless of discipline, business, whatever, you always hire first is production. You break things down the line from getting money in the door, right? So if deals are your dollars, break the process of finding too many deals before you start figuring out, how do I be more efficient with my documentation process, you know, my contracts and my operations. Like, operations are just a simple, easy word for you saying that you're too lazy to do that job, which is fine. We have a full operational staff at our business because we couldn't do it all by ourselves. Somebody's saying they got to hire for, you know, transaction coordinating or marketing or listing properties. I'm like, what are you talking about? That is a direct drain on your bank account, drain on your business. The first hire for any business, especially land or real estate investing, is somebody to produce more deals. So I'm a huge fan of hiring somebody who can both talk on the phone to existing leads and put new deals in the pipeline simultaneously. Because once you can break the amount of, you get too many deals in and that's broken, then you can move down the line and start figuring out how do you actually do more deals. But you can't figure out how to do more deals if you don't have the deals to do to begin with.
Right.
And so I do think it's hard. A lot of people, you know, maybe 10 or 20% was wrong. A lot of people aren't built in that sales vein.
Right.
Like, my wife is a great Airbnb operator. She loves when I help her with sales calls. You know, it's like not her favorite thing. And so that's just hard, right? Not everybody has that person in the house or whatever to take the sales call. Sales is always the most important thing. And for some people, it's like you get a quick dose of reality when trying to scale the business of this is what actually scales the business, is sales or production, more deals. And so it can look like a couple different things if we really want to go into detail on it. Things that create more deals are like sending more marketing, right? Doing more data, reviewing more maps. Like, there's all sorts of little tasks in there. And the other side's pretty self-explanatory. Following up with leads, cold calling, texting, looking at the MLS, putting new deals on the board to be evaluated and potentially done. So simple as production. You need to hire somebody to make you more money. For some people that's easier, but for a lot of people, I've seen that's actually kind of challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know for me, I see struggles of people when they bring in that production role if they don't know how to manage them at the same time too, right? There's folks that'll bring in that staff and they're like, okay, they're doing stuff. So we're gonna do more deals now, right? And it's like, well, hey, are you focusing on the activities that bring in money?
Are they doing it? Do you know what they need to be doing? Because, you know, it's all about what kind of direction you give, right? Like, I think about it this way with our sales and production staff. I think it is similar to like learning an instrument, right? It's like you don't schedule 4 weeks of lesson and then you know how to play the guitar. Or no, right? And I get the caveat, you can learn it on YouTube, that's fine, okay? I guess that's fine for both of these. That's not how it's done, right? You gotta have consistent input, consistent education, consistent refinement of skill. If I wanna be a world-class piano player, I'm gonna have to practice the piano week in and week out. And if I want it to go faster, I need to have an expert that's gonna tell me how to get over the things, right? That's the biggest thing I see people mess up on with sales staff and production staff, is they give them like the 2-week piano player, or like the piano teacher vibe, right? You get a couple weeks and then you figure it out or get out, right?
Yeah.
And that I've never seen work.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I always say, as the executive of any business, right? Because if you're a business owner, you are the executive, you are all the roles, right? But most importantly, you're supposed to wear the executive hat. And it is the executive's job to define the activities that the employees need to be working on. And you define those activities and then make sure they are working on them. And it's your job to communicate that and set that expectation clearly and have a way to track that between the both of you, right? Because if you don't do those things, you fail. But that's your fault, right?
Okay, let's see what else we got in here.
Oh man, I meant to mention, not to brag, Clint, but I learned how to play the ukulele in 4 weeks on YouTube, so.
Class ukulele player?
Oh yeah.
See, anybody can be average at
Yeah.
right?
You get average pretty quick.
We were talking earlier, like 70% of the deals you can get by being average.
100%.
The other 30%, you've got to be above average.
Right.
And so getting to 70%, which by the way is a great living and you can do very well on, is just consistency. Anything above that is refining the skill set to go in and dig more deals out, create more deals. Okay, so to wrap this Fireside Chat up, I want to talk about something that's happening right now in May as we're talking. Seasonality and land. Let me just start there. What have you experienced with seasonality and land?
Yeah, as in like the 4 seasons?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, any
Great hotel. Oh, sorry.
Turner comedian, he'll be here all week. Funny, I have noticed in, obviously it's different in different markets, right? So like in my more southern markets below the Bible Belt, if you will, or Sun Belt, I guess would make more sense in here. Yeah. Florida particularly. My infill lots in Florida fly off the shelf actually in early winter. So
people want to get out of
because people want to get out of the Midwest or wherever else they live, the cold, and they come down, and because of that, buying picks up. And alternatively, in the summer months, it's hot. Now, a lot of these hotter states just tend to have high demand right now, holistically. So demand is still good in them today, but that being said, seasonality-wise, it is better in the early winter and spring actually than it is in the summer and fall, which is contrary to a lot of other markets, especially ones where maybe there's snow on the ground and that has to melt. People aren't wanting to travel around or drive up into the mountains, or honestly, the property is just not as pretty, depending on if it's like muddy and snowy and sludgy versus like, okay, maybe if it's a really pretty mountain and you're gonna go like skiing on it, it's a little bit different. But back of the hand, that's what I've seen with the seasons. What about you?
Yeah, it's like, I think it's all temperature based, which is silly. Yeah. But it's like, for pretty much most properties, like you sell more when the temperature is more enjoyable. Not necessarily higher when the temperature is good. Yeah. Right? So like in Western, Midwestern states, like the Colorados and New Mexicos, the Utahs, even like edges of like some areas in California, when there's snow on the ground and it's hard to access the property, you're just not going to sell it very well, right? It's hard, and a good story I can use to illustrate this is one project we have going right now where we bought it when the cold season was coming up last year. It was a great project, and we went to sell it and just like crickets. A couple properties went under contract and and they fell in. So over the winter, instead of just like trying to shove property down people's throats, what we did is we put driveways in. Because even though it was cold, it's a lot easier to imagine yourself when you can drive up on the driveway, you can open the gate, you can walk on the property. Now that it's warm out, the other half of the property is under contract and it's about to be completely sold out. Hey guys, thanks again for joining in on this Fireside chat. Whatever we talked about, I hope it was valuable to you. Some employees, we talked about doing some deals in shoulder seasons. We talked about some other stuff too. So if you enjoyed this, please drop us a comment, leave us a like, hit subscribe. We appreciate you, we love you. Stick around for the next video and we'll see you soon. Peace.